Today on the workbench, I've got a new project here. This is a Kato P42. We're going to be putting in a decoder buddy. We're going to use an ESU V5 decoder that will get programmed up. And we've got two scale sound system speakers to put in this. So we might as well get started on this. We'll get it taken apart, and the way these come apart is you just take and pull the sides a little bit, and they drop right out. And you probably saw that the ladders that are on the side, they just fall right off. I'm going to go ahead and take them off. Set them over to the side. So what we'll end up doing to this, we're going to put new LEDs in this, so the class lights will be a function. Of course, we'll have our rear headlight, that'll be a function, and then up front we'll have class lights. We'll have ditch lights, headlight, and the number boards light on this. So we've got several different lighting functions, and so this is DCC ready. But one thing we'll have to do, I'm going to gut all this stuff out of here so we can pull this light board out. I guess you'd call that a light board. We'll take that out. I've got to take this old board, take it out. Yeah, if I can find my screwdriver, we'll take it out. Just got two screws here. Set them off to the side, and we won't need to reuse those. But there's our board. Now you could take and put in an 8-pin decoder in this, and well, you could put that in. Let's just go with that. So the other thing we'll do is I've got to mill this section of the frame out so the decoder buddy will sit all the way in there to give us clearance for everything. So let's go ahead and we'll turn this over. And what we want to do, and this thing is heavy, so it should pull a pretty good load. But so the thing about these, the motor, this has two motors in it, and you can see them right there in the trucks. Let's get this apart. So basically this, it just pulls apart. So there's one, and then just grasp that and give it a good solid pull. So, and the arrows, they are marked. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the arrows point outward. So we've got our rear motor, and then we've got our front motor, or front trucks. So what we'll end up doing is we'll pull these out. There's little clips in here. This is how these motors get their power. But we have to isolate them and be able to run them to the board. So there's that, and the front one is the same. They just pull right out. Okay, so we've got our motors ready to go. We'll cut off these boards eventually, or these little copper strips, solder extra wire to them. And now you can see this copper pickup on each side. Well, the way this gets its power is there are copper strips that run the length of this frame. So you can see right there, and you can see it up here. It runs under the fuel tank on both sides. So what that does, that in turn basically electrifies this entire piece of metal here. The whole frame is energized. You've got a positive and a negative side. I don't really want to use that system with DCC. So I'll pull this strip out on both sides, and then I'll solder a wire directly to this pickup on each side of it. And I think that does a better job, because I'm not putting keep alives in this. So now let's get back to the frame here. What we need to do, and these just pop right off. And when I say that, it doesn't pop off. So that just pops off, and that keeps that separated. So this just has some clips in it, and we'll start to unclip all of this. And then we can pull this frame apart. One back here. Okay. So there's one side. And then we can pull that side off. So I mean, it's a really simple idea, and it works really well, but we're going to change it. And it is marked right and left on each side. But here's this copper strip that'll pull right out. We'll pull that out. We don't need that anymore. So let's set this back up. Of course, that's the bottom. We're not going to have to do anything to the bottom, but we will modify this top. So, all right. I am going to go down and mill this frame out, and then we'll be able to get started on our install. All right. We've made it back here, and we've got our frame milled out. So you can see where I took that metal out, and I use a Proxxon mill to do this stuff on, with a 2-flute end mill. Anything more than that 2-flute, they just clog up really quick. So we'll go ahead and we'll start putting this back together. That makes a nice clean job. That way we can get that set down in there. But anyway, let's go ahead, get it there for the front. So there's that. I'm going to go ahead and put these top pieces in. That'll keep it together. While I'm fooling with the bottom here. snaps in. These rear ones and the front ones, there's a channel that sits in. There's that one. Well, I thought I had it in there. There's that one. And that one. One to the front. There's that. And there's that. Now there's no other frame modifications that need to be made. We'll clean this off, and then we'll go ahead and do that. Get some alcohol here. That way when we put our decoder buddy down in there, that'll be ready to go. So we'll set that aside. Put the lid back on the alcohol here. And we can start getting these trucks ready. So what we'll do first is we'll go ahead and cut the ends off of these two wires. That out of the way. So we've got that. And now, go ahead and put a couple of pieces of wire in here. This is a 36 gauge ESU wire. Turn my soldering iron on. Now get out some red. I know that it looks orange, but it is sold as red. So I should be able to get two pieces out of that. I'll go ahead and trim both ends, and then we'll put some flux on it. Get out our solder. There's that. I'll have to get me out another piece of black. All right. this. I think this piece, yeah, this piece is long enough. All right, now I'm just looking at these wires. I'm going to put some flux on them. And I'll hit them with a little solder. Just because. That. You go ahead and put a little bit of flux on those, and we'll touch them, clean that tip off. And I'll solder this other end on here. And then I'll cut that wire in half. Quick, I'll lift that long enough. All right. So we're good with that. Now, I'm going to get out my black wire. Now we're going to go ahead and prep these chassis, or the motors here. The trucks, will put some flux on each side. So now, let's see if I can zoom in. Maybe you can see that a little better. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put some solder here on the tip of the iron. And that didn't take. Let me prop that up like that. I know you can't really see what's going on there. But I'm just putting some solder in on those tabs. So let me get this side. think that took. I want to pull my magnifier down here for a second. See what I've got. Yep. So that did take. Now while I've got that one out, I'll go ahead and put a piece of wire, and I'm going to have it facing the same way as the motor connections. So there's that one. Trying to look around my magnifier. Okay, so there's one. So now, some flux in there. And we'll get all that cleaned off here in a second. So, let's see. Okay. Now, we're ready for our wire. Okay. So we've got our wire on. Get out some alcohol. That'll clean those up. Now we can get out a little bit of heat shrink. And this is for motor wires. Clean this tip off. One down, 3 to go. Now, I will mention again that it seems YouTube has monetized or started putting ads on my videos. I have not monetized the channel, so feel free to skip through the ads because I don't make a dime off of the videos. So the plan is today to get these trucks back on, and I lost a piece of heat shrink tubing. To get these trucks back on and probably wired to the Decoder Buddy. And the speakers in, I would say. All right. So we're good there. Yeah, I don't know what happened to that little piece of heat shrink. Anyway, so this right here is the front truck. It'll go up through here. Now this takes a little finagling. It's going to take a little finagling because I'm going to run it right in through there. So I need to remember to keep you in frame. So there's one. There's the second one. Oh, dummy. I did that. I did the wrong thing there. The track pickups go through that, not the motor leads. The track pickups just go down through there. So you gotta watch when you're doing this. Now, so there's 3. Pulled one off. Well, better it happen now. We'll put that back on. Let's go ahead and do the rear one while we've got it. So I will have to pull that out. rear. Now we'll go back up here, and it's this side. There's no way to be able to solder that back on. Couldn't solder that back on with it in the locomotive. Now, as long as I don't burn my finger here, all right. Okay. So we have our jumble of wires. Now, we'll zoom back out. We are ready for the Decoder Buddy. That'll sit down in there quite nicely. Now what I'm trying to do is I want to get the tall part where the decoder goes back in this part of the body. So somewhere about right there will do quite nicely. I'll mark that just because. Clean the back of that off. Now we'll mount this with some double-sided tape as usual. All right. Wrong tweezers. Been getting better at that. get it on my mark there. We're close to it. All right. Push that down in. So let's go ahead. We'll remove the lighting board. And this Decoder Buddy already has resistors in it. And actually that double-sided tape will help hold this together. So I've got plenty of wire. So we're ready to start hooking up our wires here, and let's get some of this stuff out of the way. We'll start back here in the back. I've got a track pickup here. So I can cut this. Get that. That's our other track pickup. And then this is a motor wire, so I'll cut that off in a minute. Let's go ahead and strip these off. While we're here, I'll just go ahead and do the front ones also. There's that one. That one, I could use those for speaker wires here when we get to the speakers. So it looks like I've got a lot of waste, but really I don't. I use those. Go ahead and start attaching some of these. So we've got our track pickup. If you hear something growling in the background every once in a while, I've got a locomotive up on a test stand running back and forth. And to test, one of these days I'll have to show you how I test these. But I have it's called the Motorman from Iowa Scale Engineering. And I've got it set up to it runs back and forth. It's a point-to-point system. And so I've just got it set up on a piece of track. It's probably about 9 feet long. And I run it through 2 switches just so it'll have a little curvature to it. And then the other thing I have that I test on is it's a system from Tam Valley. And they don't make it anymore. But it's a point-to-point system. And I can't remember the name of it right offhand. But it works really well. And I wanted to keep that on the inside of that. But I've got it set up on a piece of test track about 8 feet long. And it has 21-inch radius curves on it. It's basically an S shape. That way I get that curvature to test the wiring. Alright, so I'm ready to hook the motors up on this, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to strip these wires off pretty long, and then I'm going to hook a 9-volt battery to them. That way we'll know which direction the motors are going. And I think what I'll end up I'll have to do when I hook this up to the motor connections is I'll end up with one red and one black on each of the motor leads. So what I'm doing here, just have a regular 9-volt battery. Okay. So now let me go back here onto the back, and I'm pretty sure these are the same way. Nope, I'll have a red. Let's see. Yeah. So I've got red as positive. That's pulling it backward. So this one, this I'll have a red, I'll have both my reds together. Both the reds together and both the blacks together. So that'll work out good. And I'll cut these off the same length. Run that inside. Right. Get them stripped off. We'll get them hooked up. Well, the other thing I should be doing right now probably is putting the decoder on the programmer and loading the program in it. So after I get this hooked up, probably after I get the speakers in it, okay, there's that. Now, put some flux on the board. We'll heat that up. Get some alcohol and clean that off. So I'll put a little bit of more solder on it. One tad. There we go, that looks better. All right, we'll zoom in a little bit there. And I'll get my tweezers out. Get a hold of the wire. Okay, now I'm using my battery again for some reason. Okay, I was looking at that wrong there a minute ago. Yeah, I am going to have black to orange, or black to red, and so okay. So now we'll get my magnifier and check that. Make sure. Okay. All right, so we're good there. So now what we're going to do is get out our speakers. And then we'll go ahead and, which wire am I going to need? I can use all of my scraps. Okay. So let's go ahead and we'll start the tinning process. I have a mess here with my wire. Get that out of the way. There's one. Okay. Now we can start our wiring. Do that every once in a while. can go ahead and strip and tip a few more wires here. Okay. There's one. And two. Okay. Yeah, I've got a mess of my solder here. Kind of conglomeration of stuff. All right, so now let's get the alcohol back out, and we can just going to put a strip of tape right down the center. So we'll clean those off. We'll pull this in here and we'll put it right, put these speakers right on this plastic piece. Now for the double-sided tape. Just put that right in the center. Same there. So now Nice snug fit. Then we'll do the same back here in the back. Okay, so we've got our speakers in. Now we'll wire them up. Cut these off while we're here. Okay, now we'll start stripping these again. And then we'll just hook them right to the board. Hope if I'd keep that off my finger. All right. So there we've got our decoder hooked in, or Decoder Buddy in, with our speakers in. And now I'm going to load up the sound in this decoder. And so this is a 58429. We'll get that in there, get it programmed up, and then we'll start on the lights. I'll be back. Now that we have everything, we've got our speakers in, got our track pickups hooked up, the motors hooked up. Now we're going to go ahead and put in the, this is the ESU Power Pack. You can see the number there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this power pack right in here. It's got a nice little indentation right there that it fits just nicely in. And of course our connections are right here on this side. So when these come out of the package, they've got this heat shrink right here on them, or shrink wrap. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut that off, and I'll show you why. But so we'll take that, cut that off, and then we're just going to take and, you can see that there, we're just going to unfold it. That way that can sit right nicely in that little compartment right there. And I'm trying to be careful. I've got the ladders on this thing. They just pop right in and out. So you can see that one's, you just pull it right off. But that's no big deal. So anyway, what we'll do is, since my connections are over here, we'll lay this on its side here. And I'm going to feed my wires right up through that opening. Then we can put that right in there. And that body will slide right over top of that with no problem. But what I want to do is, first I want to put my blade protector on my knife. Get out the alcohol here. We'll clean this off. And I think, just to keep the size down, because I don't want it sticking too far out the side. Let's see. Well, actually, I'll just clean a spot off right here. And I'll clean the end of this off. And I'll be able to just put a piece of double-sided tape right on the end of that. And maybe right here on the side. So let me clean that and that. Get our double-sided tape. And we'll just put it right in with no problem. that. Okay, so I can put a piece on the bottom of that. At least we'll have 2 pieces of tape here. Ooh. Pull that back out. We'll put some Kapton tape down through there. That way, that'll insulate that. From that metal. Glad I caught that. Okay. There we go. So we've got that all mounted in there. No worries about a short. So we've got our red is our positive, black is the negative, and our white is the control wire, turns it on and off. And if you use anything other than a ESU Power Pack, they will void the warranty on it. And I know I've done it before on some of my stuff. But and the way this will zoom in here, this will hook. Let me get something to point with here. So we've got our positive, make sure I tell you right. I believe it's positive, white, and ground. But we'll check on that to make sure. Alright, I did tell you wrong. So we've got our red for our U+, and then this is the ground right here. And then this is one of the it's not one of the newer versions of the Decoder Buddy. So our white wire, we can either put it up on the 10-pin connector up here, or this small connector, and use aux 10, or since we are able to detach the board to detach the shell, we can move over to pin number 1 and solder our white wire over here, and that's what I'll do. So let's see, let's cut these down and we'll strip them off and cut this black one down, and then my white, I'll end up running it across and over and around, something like that. So I'll cut that off there. Now the newer versions of the Decoder Buddy, you can solder, they have a space on the board there to solder your white wire to. I mean, this is no big deal. Okay, there's all that. Now we can put get some flux. Now we'll take and put a little bit of flux up here on pin number 1. Some stuff out of the way here. So we'll do the hard one first. When I say hard, it's not any more difficult than anything else. Just want a little bit of solder there. There's that to pin 1. There's our positive. And or negative. So there's that. Keep alive. Or power pack, I should say. Everything tucked in nice and neat. We can put our decoder in. We're all good to go there. And now we can put our, or go ahead and finish up our wiring, and we'll be good to go. Okay, so we put our decoder on, got it all programmed up, put it on, or installed it. It does work. Forward and reverse are correct. Got good sound to it. Got the programming in it. Of course, now we're down to lights. As you can see, this Decoder Buddy has resistors in it already, so I don't have to fool with resistors for these lights. I've got the shell out here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull this back lighting board out that's for the rear light and for the class lights. So we'll kind of just set the shell off to its side for now. And let's see. Okay, so we've got this rear light panel out. What I'm going to do with this, I'll drill a hole, a small hole here at the end of this light board, and then I'll put a small LED in that. And then for the rear headlight, I'll take and drill a small hole in this, and then I can put the LED in that. So that won't be any big deal. We'll go ahead and we'll do that first. And that's too big of a bit. So what I want to do is just anywhere in there I can drill a hole, and we'll check the depth, kind of get it centered, the depth anyway. That'll be good for that. And then I can drill a hole right. Actually, let me get a little smaller bit for that. I don't have to drill it right in the end. I can drill it right there on top. So we'll go ahead and drill a hole. Not quite yet. Just a little more. Okay. I'll keep that bit in there because I'll need it for the front. When I put this in. All right, let's go ahead and put in all we'll basically do is take and set that right in. Making sure that the bulb is forward, and I'll use my Bondic what did I do? There it is. So we'll get this little piece of paper towel here. Just kind of fill that up with the Bondic. And then grab the light. We'll make sure that that's pointing forward. Okay, so there's that one. And then we'll do the same thing. If I can grab one. Okay, clean that off. And then I want to test. Okay, so that one's working. Salt flash in there. And that one's working. Okay, so that is our rear lights, and let's see, let me take I am going to take a micro brush and some black, just so this won't bleed through the end. The rest of it will be fine. That back together. All right. So we'll set this off to the side. Now, this board here, what we'll end up doing is we'll cut this off because we don't need all of it. So we'll just cut that. Need that. Won't have to cut any more of that. Now I am saving this one piece because I will have to cut it. I'll save this one. Now the other thing that is here is there's a light board for the number board. So we'll get it out. And I'll end up cutting it off. So cut that off. That's the number board. And then for the headlights, I'm going to cut it off. Right there. And the ditch lights will be, I'll make those. So we can go ahead and I'll do this one the same way that I did the rear lights. I'll drill a hole. Of course, what I should have done was drilled that hole first. That way I could have been able to hold it better. Need just a little more. Okay, there's that. And then the number board, I want to do the same thing too. Let's see. Trim a little bit more of that off. And then hit it with a file. Because I actually want to come in from the end on that one. I'm just filing that down. Okay. So I've got that one drilled. Now, for this one, change my bit out. Go right here on the end. Okay, that gives me just a small hole for that. Oh, and I'll have to, let's see, let me lay this back in here. I'm going to have to drill a couple of holes in the corner of that for my ditch lights to run the wire through. Okay. So okay, now we're ready to start the process of putting these lights in. And I'll get out the Bondic for that. There's one. Really just have to make sure that I've got the bulb facing the way that I want it. Okay, let me test those two just to make sure they're still working. Okay, that one's working. That one still works. So we're still good to go. Now we'll pull out our body and we can run our lights through for our ditch lights. We'll do these one at a time. There's my small screwdriver. And we'll get our second side. Okay, so now before I put any on the back side, I want to test and make sure that they work. That one works. And that one works. Okay, now and it doesn't take very long. I usually just count to 5 on this. And that'll secure those in there. So we've got all of our lights where we need them, what we're going to do with them. So now we're ready to start hooking them up to our light board. And I usually just set these on an old one. I've got this taped to this little reel here. But just something to hold that there so I don't have to fool with it, and you don't have to ruin the other one you got there. So anyway, let me take a little break here and then I'll be back. Alright, so I've kind of done some stuff off camera here because frankly you don't want to watch me for an hour stripping 10 wires, especially all of these wires. So we've got everything that we need. Got 3 little bundles there, ditch lights, and our class lights, headlight, number boards, and the same in the rear here are ditch lights, or not ditch lights, but class lights, and the rear headlight. So got all that. Now it's time to start putting all this into the Decoder Buddy. And I'll do this off camera too, but then I'll tell you what pads I put everything on, because I'm going to end up using my magnifier to put this stuff in. So, but I've got everything wired up, and now we can just start the final assembly process here. So, alright, I'll be back here in a little bit. Okay, now we've got everything's wired up. I've got the light board here all wired up. We're ready to put it all back together. So the way I've got this is aux 1 and 3 on the light board are ditch lights, I believe 4, aux 4 was rear number boards, aux 5 was the front number board, and then aux, see, 1, 2, and 2 is the class lights. So we'll go ahead and put this together, make sure all of our wires are in there, and you can see that that slides right down over top. Just making sure that I've got everything in. Okay, so there we are. Oh, let me zoom out. We've got it all together. Everything's good to go. All right. Now I'll put this up on the turntable and we'll test it out. Oh, the other thing we'll have to do is activate the Power Pack. I believe it is CV131. And all else fails, break out the instructions. But I'll activate that and then it's CV113. Okay. So it comes with a value of 50, and that's 0.8 seconds. So I'll set it, the maximum is 255. I'll set it up all the way and we'll see what we get out of it. All right. Come back, it'll be up on the turntable. All right, we've got this up on the turntable. And we'll turn it on and let it go through its startup sequence. And I'll turn this around here and we'll go through the lighting functions on it. So we've got, of course, we've got our headlight, and we've got our class lights, and our ditch lights, and they oscillate with the horn. And then the other one we have up front is the number board light. So in the rear we've got the rear headlight and the rear class lights. But after I put in the ESU Power Pack, I forgot to mention when I put that in that after I set CV113 to a value of 255, I'll get 6 to 7 seconds. That's with all the lights on and it moving. So that's pretty good for the keep alive. And that, and of course, that's adjustable. So we've got everything running, everything working good. And I think this will be a good runner on the layout. So looks like we're done with this one. Thanks for watching.